What is a speaking engagement with you like, Dan? What can people expect, and what are the kinds of topics that you like to talk about? I know you probably, I'm sure, do Q&A afterwards, which people really enjoy. They open up about their lives and what they're doing and the questions that they have. But what can people expect, and what are some of the things that you like to address during your speeches?
Sure. So it generally falls into a couple of different areas, as you might expect, based on what we've already been talking about. One is, how do you do structured problem solving and address those things that eat at your bottom line? So we'll talk about, in that instance, we'll walk through the 8-step problem solving process that my firm uses. And we'll do that depending on the audience, because you want to tailor that talk so it's going to have the most impact to that particular audience. I'll either use an example from my industrial experience to walk through how we applied those tools, or I also happen to be part owner of a small hospitality business in Maine, where I'm from. And I can use that small business example of how, in this particular case, how we dealt with the pandemic as a small business and step through that same sort of process. So it's relatable from either a larger business, a manufacturing perspective, or a small family-owned business. So I'll cover that structured problem solving in those two different ways to show how it can be adapted to the situation you're in. I'll also I will talk about lean manufacturing and process improvement more in general, and talk through the high levels of what those systems are, because that's where my experience base is from, and doing improvements is using those specific tools. And then a third leg for speaking is around how do teams work in a business environment. And so, in fact, I've got an upcoming engagement that's rather interesting, where I'm using the model that Patrick Lencioni shared in his 5 dysfunctions of a team and how to overcome it, as an illustration for a conference on industrial plant maintenance and reliability in Kenya. Now, unfortunately, I'll be remote doing that delivery later on in May, but it's also, in that case, I'm using an example of where we went through and did improvements and saw those same sort of dysfunctions we had to overcome in our particular plant team. And so all these speaking engagements have a theoretical basis, but also have a practical basis of how it's been applied. So I like to turn things into a story that's relatable for the audience members. So hopefully at the end of 45 minutes or an hour, they have something that they can take away and say, yes, that might work back at my location.